Men and women of Reddit who caught their significant others cheating. How did you do that? And what was your reaction?
June 1st, 2018. Normal day, a Friday. My husband had kissed me goodbye and gone to work. I was cleaning the house for company who was coming to stay the weekend. The doorbell rang. There was a man at my door who introduced himself as the husband of a woman my husband worked with. He was there to tell me that my husband and his wife were having an affair. He had busted them about 6 months earlier and had told his wife that she had to end the affair. He thinks that she did end it for about 3 months, but then they started up again. When he found out they were at it again, he called my husband because he knew that if he confronted him in person, he'd be sitting in a jail cell for what he'd have done. On the phone, he told my husband to leave his wife alone or else he would come and tell me everything that was happening. Apparently, my husband thought that he was bluffing, so I was literally the last to know. My husband never came home again. He got an Airbnb, a short-term rental apartment, and a lawyer. The divorce was December 21st, 2018. We had been together for 24 years. Still hurts.
A friend of mine was suspicious that her husband was cheating because he went to play soccer with friends way too often. He always came back already showered since he would sweat while playing. One day, she sewed his soccer socks together, and when he came back all showered, she saw that the socks were still sewn together, so he hadn't been playing soccer at all. She later confronted him, and he was indeed cheating. A lot of people have pointed out that clean socks alone would have been enough evidence, and that's true. I guess she just didn't think that deeply about it.
I found a used condom on the bathroom floor. I just emailed him a 30-day end of tenancy notice.
I own the house. I owned a house with my fiance. I woke up in the middle of the night and he wasn't in bed. I went searching. His truck and another vehicle were in the driveway. Then I went upstairs and found that the guest bedroom was locked. After barging my way in, I found him in bed with another woman. That bed happened to be my childhood bed. He forced me out of the room, literally grabbed me by the neck, pushed me out, and closed the door behind me. I knew I couldn't do anything at that point, so I called his parents who lived a few blocks away. His dad showed up and another fight broke out. I ended up leaving and staying at his parents' place until dawn. I moved out that weekend and let the house go into foreclosure, meaning the bank took it back over the unpaid mortgage. 9 years later, it's finally off my credit report. I'm happily married to an amazing man, and we own a beautiful home together.
I found a picture on Facebook of him with a newborn baby, captioned by the other woman, "Handsome husband and cute baby. I'm so proud."
We'd been together for 9 years, and our own kids were 6 and 8.
I had co-authored and published a book during my undergraduate years at LSU, Louisiana State University. And the first book signing was out of state, in San Antonio, Texas. Thursday night was campus party night, and she often overslept or didn't attend Friday classes at all. Because of her relaxed attitude toward attendance, I thought it would be no big deal for her to miss the Friday of our book signing. Well, she flaked, and I went to Texas alone. Hours before our book signing began, I saw her calling on my PrimeCo phone, an old mobile carrier. But I sent it to voicemail because I was still salty. It wasn't until a week later that I cleared out my voicemails, and I saved hers for last. It was her calling to wish me good luck, with all of her dorm mates laughing and carrying on in the background. She made her point in 20 seconds or so, but I noticed that the voicemail was well over 2 minutes long. Instead of hastily deleting the message, I let it play in its entirety. Come to find out, she hadn't hung up when she thought she had, and I heard her telling her friends a few graphic differences between being intimate with me and the guy she was cheating with.
I had no clue. We were middle school friends and high school sweethearts, the kind who had those happily ever after ambitions. I avoided her until I had sorted myself out emotionally and mentally, and when she resurfaced, I invited her to a nice dinner. She thought it was a sweet gesture since we both had had so much going on that semester. I bobbed and weaved to avoid eye contact for much of the dinner, and after the check came, I played her the voicemail and let her find her own way home.
My ex-wife said she was going to stay with her parents for the night because they needed help with something. Not common, but not totally unusual. I said fine and went over to a buddy's house who had just gone through a breakup. We decided we'd set him up with a profile on Match.com, a dating website, so he could get back out there. And when we opened the site, my wife was one of the featured profiles. No joke. So I printed the thing off and drove all the way up to her mom's house, about an hour, to ask her about it, and her mom said she wasn't there. So I called her up, and at first, she said she was at her mom's house. Then I told her she wasn't because I was standing at her mom's house. And after I told her about the profile, she owned up and said she was at some guy's house and that we'd deal with it in the morning. The only thing we dealt with in the morning was starting the divorce paperwork.
My then fiance of 3 years invited me along on a work trip so that I wouldn't worry about him cheating. One night, he was out at a team building event and I went down to the lobby for snacks. When the elevator doors opened, it was him and a female employee holding hands. I got in and he pretended not to know me. I was so hurt that I didn't say a word. Never dated again, honestly. This is my mother's story, but I was so impressed with her. She had suspected my father was cheating for a while, so she hid a tape recorder in his car. She retrieved the recorder a few days later and had proof that not only was he cheating, he was sleeping with her best friend and talking shit about her the whole time. Well, her opportunity to listen to the tapes came while my dad was getting LASIK, laser eye surgery. He hadn't gotten to sleep soon enough afterwards, so he spent a few hours in agony while he recovered. It was while he was writhing around blind and in pain that she came into their room and played him the recording of him screaming her best friend. I was in awe of how savage she was when I found out. My best friend caught his ex cheating in a really funny way. She was super sly about talking to the guy. They used a shared Google Doc to write to each other. My friend didn't realize anything until he asked to use her notes for a class they had together. He noticed a document called Sly Cooper, which piqued his curiosity, and he realized what was happening when he read it. So he started with them. While she was in class and wouldn't be able to access the document, he would leave weird messages for the other guy. And then when the guy responded, he would delete both the messages he had sent and the guy's responses. He also figured out when the guy would respond, since it was a pretty standard pattern, and did the same thing in the other direction. Eventually, he set it up so that both of them thought they were going on holiday together, with the other one paying for it. To be honest, I still don't know how he pulled that off, but his ex was as bright as a lampshade, so it's definitely possible.
Fast forward to the day of the holiday. He watches his ex and the guy meet up for their romantic weekend away and immediately start arguing about why the other one hasn't bought the tickets. He then texts his girlfriend to go look at the Google Doc, and it just says, "Go f yourselves," along with a selfie he took with the two of them in the background. I wish I had been there to see the reactions.
He went to Hawaii for a business trip without his wife and kids. Like a good wife, I packed his clothes before he left and unpacked his dirty laundry when he returned home. I found a tiny pair of white cotton panties, no lace, in his suitcase. He had recently dropped a lot of weight, more than 100 pounds, and played it off by saying that he had bought them for himself. They had no label and were simple bikini cut, so theoretically, they could have been men's as well. It did sort of explain the pretty brunette who followed him off the plane at the airport and kept looking over at my kids and me at the luggage carousel. What an ass to make his side piece come face to face with his wife and kids. I made sure he wore those panties at least once a week for the remaining few months we were together. I set out his clothes every day and he couldn't protest. I was in the Navy and out on deployment for 6 months, having just recently gotten engaged. One of those stupid things that young military guys do. One day I get a letter from my fiance's best friend telling me that she had caught my fiance and her own boyfriend together. This was years before email and smartphones were common. We write back and forth several times, and eventually it comes out how she caught them, how my fiance begged her not to tell me, and that my fiance had no idea that the two of us were corresponding. I eventually get back to the States and plan to play it off as though I didn't know anything. But too many of my friends intercepted me with the news that it wasn't just the one guy, it was several. And they let me know that she knew that I was aware. Eventually we met, and the confrontation was minimal and tame. We broke off the engagement without a lot of drama. She kept the ring. The best friend and I ended up hooking up, at first as sort of a revenge kind of thing, but it turned serious. We celebrate our 31st wedding anniversary this year.